In today's episode of Missing, we are speaking about the mysterious disappearance of Susan Elizabeth Soucheck from Melbourne, Florida in August of 2017.
And a big thanks to the researcher who put this document together, Kathleen Studer. She's always coming through with these highly researched documents, and we are happy to be working with her. So big thanks to Kathleen again for this.
Yes, big thanks to Kathleen. And Susan went missing on August 5th, 2017. She was 23 at the time of her disappearance. She is a white woman, 5'4", 120 pounds, with green eyes and brown hair. She wears eyeglasses and her ears are pierced. She has a mole on her chest, a scar on her left wrist, and tattoos on her thigh, the inside of her left wrist, her shoulder, and both hips.
And if anyone has any information regarding Susan Soucheck, please call Kyle Williams of the Brevard County Sheriff's Department at 321-633-8419.
Okay, please follow us on social media at Missing CSM. We are going to break quick for commercial here, and we'll be right back to speak about Susan's disappearance. Susan Elizabeth Soucheck was born in February of 1994 to parents Mary and Joel Soucheck in Melbourne, Florida. And Susan has 3 sisters and 1 younger brother. And she had already packed a lifetime in her 23 years on this earth, having married, given birth to 2 sons, divorced, tried other relationships, and had worked several jobs. But on August 5th, 2017, she left home and has not contacted her friends or family since.
So the life before she disappeared, Susan attended West Shore Junior High in Melbourne, which is considered to be in the top 50 high schools in the country. It's also very well known for being a rigorous college prep school. She was active in basketball, soccer, and cheerleading, and most likely graduated in 2013.
And Susan married Kyle Gorski sometime in the early 2010s. And he was 6 years older than her and had already lived a bit of a life for himself as well. He had 1 child with a previous relationship and had several domestic violence incidents with that person and other women he had dated, according to court records. And Susan and Kyle had 2 boys together during the time that they were a couple.
So not surprising that the relationship didn't last, and Kyle filed for divorce on June 29th of 2015, and Susan filed for a protective order against Kyle in August of 2015, and on December 7th of 2015, the divorce was finalized. So obviously a very tumultuous relationship there, and good for Susan for being what seemed to be proactive in getting out of that relationship and doing the right thing and filing those protective order documents.
Yeah, that part was a little curious to me, that Susan filed for a protective order against Kyle only like a month and a half or something after he filed for divorce. So definitely seems like tumultuous, as you noted, but potentially some domestic incidents going on in that couple's lives at that time. Certainly the protective order against Kyle would point directly towards that.
Yeah, and also the proven history of domestic abuse on Kyle's part.
Right. But by the time the divorce was finalized in December of 2015, Susan had moved on to a new boyfriend. His name is Justin Scrivano, and he was 7 years older than Susan, and he had his own run-ins with law enforcement.
And unfortunately, things with Justin weren't perfect for her either. On December 10th, 2016, she was investigated for assaulting him. However, charges against her were dropped by the prosecutor. And then on April 27th of 2017, he was arrested for stabbing her.
Yeah, this is very disturbing. And police reports state that they were parked out in the woods so he could get high. And Susan asked him to take her back to the house because she wanted to sleep. And he became irritated with her and ordered her out of the car. When she refused, he grabbed a knife and stabbed her in her left arm. Then he started screaming at her for getting blood on the interior of his car.
This is so sad to just see this and kind of experience this unfolding, because you kind of know where it's going. And At that time, Susan tried to call 911. After finally exiting the vehicle, Justin did chase her down and forced her back in the vehicle by grabbing her by the neck. He taped her wound with electrical tape and tried to pour glue on it, I guess to stop the bleeding so that she didn't have to go to the hospital and have to say how this happened.
Yeah. And Susan demanded to be taken to the emergency room, which Justin did do. But then he immediately left the area, and he was later charged with felony aggravated battery. And there's an excerpt from the police report here that we might as well read. Upon arrival, Melbourne police dispatched advised the female victim and 911 caller, later identified as Susan Soucheck, was at Westhoff Hospital with a stab wound to her left arm. I met with Soucheck at Westhoff Hospital, where she advised her boyfriend, Justin Scrivano, entered into a verbal argument with her in the woods directly behind 20 South Wickham Road and stabbed her in her left arm. Soucheck advised Scrivano took her out to the woods so he could get high while she sat in the car. Scrivano became agitated when Soucheck asked him to take her back to his residence so she could lay down and go to sleep. Scrivano then instructed Soucheck to exit the vehicle. Soucheck refused to exit the vehicle, and she did not want to be left alone in the woods. And Soucheck advised Scrivano grabbed a green-handled knife that was in between his center console and stabbed her once in the left arm. Scrivano began screaming at Soucheck to exit the vehicle as she was getting blood all over the interior. And Soucheck exited the vehicle and began to walk away, and advised Scrivano chased after her while she was attempting to contact 911. Scrivano grabbed her by the neck and forced her back into his truck. Scrivano taped her wound with electrical tape and then tried to pour glue into the wound. Soucheck advised she wrapped the wound with Scrivano's shirt and told him to take her to the ER. Upon their arrival at the hospital, Soucheck asked Scrivano to leave, which he then insisted he wanted his shirt back from her and proceeded to remove his shirt from her wound. And Scrivano left the hospital and began traveling out of the county without making any attempt to notify police of the incident.
Yeah, it just paints a pretty violent and disturbing picture of this relationship. And I just feel terrible that Susan finds herself in these situations once again. This has turned violent. There's stabbing involved. And again, you can kind of see how this is all playing out. Kathleen did include in the research document a picture of Susan with a bandaged left arm, and we are operating on the assumption that this is from the attack that we just described, the attack from Justin.
So on June 18th, 2017, Susan was stopped in Melbourne for driving with a suspended license, which is a civil infraction. And at the time, her address was listed as the address of her grandparents in India Atlantic, a town on the Barrier Island just east of Melbourne.
Now, the citation does not list who owned the vehicle she was driving, nor is there any information on why her driver's license was suspended, which is interesting that there's no information on why her driver's license was suspended. But on July 25th, the fine was still unpaid, and a notice of non-compliance was noted by the court.
And by August of 2017, Susan had stated in a social media comment that she was no longer with Justin, which is good, at least, that was only a few months after the attack, so seems like she ended things after being stabbed by Justin. And on Friday, August 4th, Susan assisted a friend with moving a vehicle, and she also spoke with her brother Joel.
And the next day, on August 5th, she was last seen leaving her residence alone. She was reportedly seen at Mudfest, but that sighting has not been publicly substantiated.
Right, and the person who posted that on social media has since deleted the post, according to others who saw it. So whether that was an actual sighting or not, we may never know, but I'm leaning towards probably not.
And I'm pretty sure that Mudfest is the event that takes place in different cities and towns across the country where there's like big rig vehicles, there's activities outside, there is obviously mud, there's like mud slides and things like that. So this is a big town event. That's what my mode of thinking here is.
Right, yeah. The Mudfest from 2017 took place at Lake Okeechobee from the 10th to the 13th of August, and that was the weekend after she went missing.
And Susan's disappearance actually has not had a whole lot of mainstream media coverage. So a lot of the facts surrounding her disappearance are unknown. For example, it's not known if she left in a vehicle or if she walked away from her home.
Right. And people that know her are saying that she never would have left her boys behind. Of course, she had 2 sons. And it's also not known if there's anyone law enforcement considers a suspect.
So frustrating. The charges against Justin for the assault on Susan moved forward, and on November 27th of 2017, he pleaded nolo contendere to the charges that were amended to misdemeanors.
Right. Yeah, that's just no contest. And
Yeah.
he doesn't accept any guilt by pleading that, but he was placed on 12 months of probation with the Department of Corrections with a list of conditions that he must do and or abide by in a certain time period.
And remember Kyle, her first relationship, Kyle and Justin moved on and ended up marrying other people. So hopefully those relationships didn't turn into the violent domestic situation that we were experiencing here with Susan.
And thanks to Kathleen for including a photo of Justin Scrivano from his arrest after stabbing Susan.
Not looking like he's having the best day.
No, looking a little out of it.
Yeah. Looking like he might be coming down from something or needing a fix of something. So the city of Melbourne, Florida is on Florida's east coast, just south of Cape Canaveral and the Kennedy Space Center. Its population in the 2020 census, just over 88,000 people. Melbourne has a lower than average crime per capita compared to many other cities in the United States. So a relatively safe area and really a good location. The Kennedy Space Center, Cape Canaveral, kind of a beautiful part of Florida.
And when researching Susan's case, one of the things that stood out to our researcher, Kathleen, is that since Susan went missing, there are 19 other missing person cases still active in NamUs in Brevard County, and several of them being teenagers.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Not sure what to make of that, but when you look at all of the active cases of persons that went missing in Florida since Susan went missing, the number jumps to 891 in the state of Florida.
Right. And the only other states that compete with that number are California and Texas. And obviously, I think we're talking about states with large populations and a lot of land mass, being Florida, California, and Texas. Alaska being omitted because of population, likely.
Right, exactly. And those people that went missing, 390 of those cases were between the ages of 0 and 18. So very young into early adulthood.
Right. And so that's just over 44% of the total missing people in that 8-year period from Florida.
So you might be asking yourself why so many people go missing in Florida.
Right. And one possible reason that Kathleen notes here in the research is that Florida is one of 16 states that has legislated the requirement for law enforcement to use the NamUs database for reporting their missing persons. Interesting. I would not have expected Florida to be a leader in that department, but other states are Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Connecticut, Florida, Illinois, Michigan, New Mexico, New York, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Texas, and Washington. No Massachusetts, Lance.
I'm actually very surprised at Massachusetts not being among that list.
Right. I mean, NamUs is certainly a great organization. And so Florida was also third in human trafficking cases out of all U.S. states in a 2024 statistic.
Right. So what we're saying here, number one is California and number two is Texas. What we're saying here is that the reason why we have these numbers is because Florida has the human trafficking problem. So that's why they require law enforcement to use NamUs, because they have the problem. That's how you get the numbers of all of the individuals who have gone missing in Florida. So is human trafficking actually the reason why so many youth populate the lists of missing in Florida, or is it a combination of a number of things?
Yeah, I'm guessing combination. Again, population overall and landmass with those states seems to correlate. But comparatively, youth missing in Texas in the same period is 32% of the total missing. In California, it's only 17%, while nationwide, the number is 26%. So, yes, Susan was no longer a teenager. She had a very youthful appearance, and you can see that from the photos. She really easily could have been mistaken for someone 18 or potentially slightly younger.
Absolutely. And I think on landmass and the location of Florida, it being mostly coast, there's probably 90% of Florida is coastal, right? So there's a lot of, I would imagine, opportunities for traffickers to transport these people being trafficked overseas.
And both Melbourne and Brevard County have had their share of mysterious missing persons cases. In November of 2016, less than a year after Susan went missing, a woman's body was found in a van at Walmart. And the video surveillance showed the van arriving about a month prior.
That's pretty wild that the van arrives a month prior and there's no real investigation or no real process in trying to figure out who the van belongs to and what it's doing there, why it's been there for so long. The news report on this case also mentions that this is the third body in a vehicle in that particular Walmart since 2015.
Yeah, that's pretty shocking. That, I don't want to use the SK phrase, but that kind of sounds like that can't be just coincidental.
It does, yeah. That does sound, there's a lot of speculation that we could be going down right now, and I'm happy to do so, but yeah, you really have to wonder what the motivation here was. It's in a Walmart parking lot. It's remarkable it wasn't found for a month. It's out in the open.
Yeah, and I wonder about that video surveillance and whether there's someone leaving the van or if it just arrives, no one exits or what, but pretty interesting. And then there's the case of Katia Belaya, who went missing in September of 2014. And she had told her children that she was running an errand to the store, but she never returned.
And then on December 24th, 2024, so just last year, her van with her remains was located in a retention pond just over a mile from her home.
Right, on Christmas Eve, too, she was discovered.
On Christmas Eve, yeah.
I'm sure more tragic even for her family. But yeah, she was missing almost 10 years. Anytime that someone goes missing with a car, with their car being missing too, I pretty much assume that they're in water somewhere because it's just so hard to hide a car, Yeah.
Yeah, especially over a period of 10 years there. If she wasn't in the water, there would be some sort of indication that car traveled somewhere. There would be tolls, there would be CCTV at gas stations, and just many, many opportunities for that car to be spotted.
And the state of Florida is not known for much elevation, with Melbourne being just under 20 feet above sea level. But there are a lot of bodies of water, some man-made, some natural, around Brevard County, including the Indian River Lagoon between the mainland and the Barrier Island.
Right, and Sunshine State Sonar, the group that found Katia Belaya, had searched many of these bodies of water. And the same group, Sunshine State Sonar, they've found 18 people since 2023, according to their website. The oldest case they solved was 50 years old.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And like many of the other groups searching bodies of water to solve missing persons cases, they are all volunteers spending their free time for this noble cause. And there are quite a few of them out there. We've spoken about several of them.
So unfortunately, Susan has been missing for just over 8 years now. We did mention that she has sons. Her boys are working their way towards being teenagers. Obviously, her family misses her, and obviously someone knows something about what happened to her.
And if you have any information regarding the case of Susan Soucheck, please contact Kyle Williams of the Brevard County Sheriff's Office at 321-633-8419. We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsor.
And a thank you to our sponsors. Back to the program.
And before we wrap here, just wanted to add a quick final thoughts segment about this case. And Susan's disappearance is very tragic. And again, there really isn't too much information on it, except in regards to her partners, Justin and Kyle. And Justin stabbed her. He stabbed her. Like, I gotta wonder where the investigation into him for Susan's disappearance is. Like, please tell me he's being investigated or has been investigated at least for this.
Yeah, and we cover a lot of missing person stories, and Kathleen puts together these research documents, and we did have a dialogue about just how abrupt this one is. It is, young woman has issues in life. She's involved in domestic abuse situations, and then she abruptly goes missing. And that's, to use that word again, like, this ends so abruptly. She goes missing. No one knows if she uses a car. No one knows if she walked away. She just seemed to slip out of people's eye line, and she's gone. And yes, Justin stabbed her. She was involved in that abusive relationship, and he was, I guess, addicted to some form of drugs because he wanted to get high in the car. She seemed to be keeping herself clear of that as well. Getting back to the point that I was trying to make in the beginning of the statement is that we talk about a lot of missing people. They have a lot of circumstances that go into why they went missing, and this one is a shining example, not in a good way, of a disappearance that's uncomfortable to talk about because it doesn't have a lot of those details. So yes, we have a dialogue before we record about how short this is, and it's always worth it to put it out there, even though it ends abruptly, because that statement that we use a lot, someone knows something. So the more we talk about this, the more details we're going to have. And I hope one day we can do an episode that is longer, that has some resolution here, hopefully a good resolution, but some resolution here. So just because a story ends abruptly doesn't mean that we're going to move on to the next one that has, more substance to it. All that being said, I do hope that they're looking at Justin, because what did you make of that being stabbed in the arm? That's like a total defensive wound. To me, in my opinion, that she raised her arm as he was getting heated with a knife, knowing that he might be using it to stab her. I don't think he just leaned over and poked her in the arm. I think he was trying to stab her in a more vital area of her body.
It's definitely possible. I think defensive wounds are typically on the hands, but the arm is not obviously far from the hand. I will say, just in regards to the timeline of her disappearance, that incident where Justin stabbed her was in April of 2017. She reports on social media in August of 2017 that her and Justin are not together anymore. And then she goes missing just mere days later after reporting that she was, had broken up with Justin, I guess. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know why we'd be looking anywhere else at this point.
Right. And we just had a conversation with an individual who we met at CrimeCon, a gentleman named Joe Dalu, who has a private investigative service company, and he's an expert on stalking, and he's incredibly knowledgeable, and it's interesting timing that we're talking about this, and it just resonated to me, his words about how he encourages his clients to have some sort of record of communication with the person who's stalking them, because you want to have that when it's time to do any sort of legal action. So cutting them off 100% isn't really his advice. I mean, for right or wrong, whatever your opinion is, but his advice is to not cut them off 100% and not engage them, but if there's an opportunity to have communication where they're looking like they're escalating in, text messages or social media posts, that's good for your case, is what he's saying. And her posting on social media that it's over, I wonder if that was a way for her to kind of document it for people to see. Obviously she's doing it on social media to document it for people to see, but I wonder if that was so that she would have some sort of official documentation that they were no longer a couple in case it did escalate. And I wonder if that might have instigated him to do something in some sort of retribution.
Yeah, I think in a lot of those situations, the time that you're breaking up with the person who is obsessed, I guess, that is the most dangerous part. And I, again, just want to note that Kathleen here in the research mentions that Susan stated in a social media comment that she was no longer with Justin, and that was in August of 2017. She goes missing on August 5th. So that gives us, 4.5 days for that post to have been made, and then she goes missing. So to say that those, 2 points aren't related is, again, a little hard for me to believe at this point.
Being the last place she was seen at this Mudfest, which we described as it being this big community event, it went on for a few days. I can see a scenario where she bumps into Justin or bumps into somebody, and hey, let's talk or something. Taking somebody from a public place like that, a populated place where people's attention is so passing to you personally, they're looking at these Jeeps and these big rigs going through the mud, and they're participating in the activities, and something that might look like a fight or something in the distance probably isn't like on their radar. So I think taking somebody that in this circumstance, if Susan was abducted from Mudfest, probably is easier than, scooping them up from a parking lot if they pull over, or a gas station or something, a more secluded area, because it's almost like you're being taken in plain sight in front of people. And, maybe she doesn't want to cause a scene or something.
It's an interesting idea. I will say I wish we had some cell phone data here. We do know that she had texted with her brother. I believe this was only a few days before she went missing. But yeah, it's never been confirmed that she was actually at that Mudfest. And I would go as far to say as I don't think she ever made it there, because she was last seen on Saturday, August 5th, and Mudfest started on August 10th. So where was she for those 5 days,
Right. That's a great point, because it does say that she was sighted there, but that sighting has never been substantiated. Right. So again, this is the uncomfortable conversation that we have when we have so little information to go by, and we obviously will put the call out to anybody who has information if we are missing something, or there is some cell phone information, if there's any Ring camera information, any information whatsoever that just wasn't available on the public forums, or wasn't available using the research methods that we use and Kathleen uses. Yeah, please reach out to us. Please contact us, because we would love to continue this conversation about Susan.
Okay, everybody. Thanks a lot for listening. We really appreciate it. Please follow us on social media at MissingCSM, and we will be back later this week with another new episode.